Well, it's a delight to be able to interview today Dr. Anthony Esolen, who is a very accomplished longtime professor of humanities, an author of 30 plus books. I don't know, 500, 1,000 articles, something like that, in many different journals. For the purposes of this interview, I'm interviewing Dr. Esolen to speak about his wonderful book, No Apologies: Why Civilization Depends on the Strength of Men. I just read this book a month ago, and it stirred my heart to want to become a man. Please, God, make me a real man. So perhaps, Tony, you could help us. Why did you write this book? What was the genesis of this creation?
A little bit of righteous indignation, I think. Not so much on behalf of men who, they're grown up. They ought to be able to take care of themselves. Somewhat on behalf of them, but mostly on behalf of boys, who are told in one form or another, again and again, that there's something wrong with them, that their natural interests, their natural energy, these are all problems, right? And their sex is responsible for most of the uh, rotten things in the world. They've got nothing really to be proud of. Even the achievements of great men of the past are looked down upon, first because they were past, and second because supposedly the only reason why they achieved such greatness was that they kept women out of the enterprises that they engaged in. And when this is fed to boys from mass media, popular culture, and the schools, what a rotten thing to do to kids who have no defense against it. It's a horrible thing to do. And so
Yeah.
I'm writing to defend them and to also to encourage men um, to get with it and not to have accepted, because many of them have rejected some of that stuff that I've just talked about, but not to accept any of it, certainly not on its own terms, um, and to remember to remember what it was, or to imagine what it was to be a man, and even now in most places of the world, still to be a man when you couldn't take for granted the high industrial civilization that's all around us. You actually had to do a good lot of hard physical work, even if that wasn't your prime job.
Yeah.
Um, and without
Yes.
this, we wouldn't be here. But also without a lot of other things that men have done and that they do naturally, that they're inclined to do. Without them, we wouldn't be here either.
Yes.
We couldn't continue as we are.
I thought that was one of the. I thought that was really an amazing part of your book was in your argument of setting forth. I think you call it the noble aim of manliness, that you're trying to kindle great zeal for in young men. You destroyed the idea that somehow this is one form of manliness that's maybe just culturally relative. And you argued, I think you pointed out that in something like 1,500, we have the ability to study 1,500 cultures, and that there is no other paradigm that has
Right,
existed for men. I thought that was
right.
devastating.
It's complete nonsense.
How,
When you look at male behavior in the higher mammals and in for one species of monkeys, in all the primates and all the monkeys, all the apes, right? Of those mammals that are closest to us, you immediately recognize stark differences in behavior from male to female, and these are in accord with what you notice also with the human race, and they are in accord with the very structure of our bodies. So why should anybody be surprised? It's one thing that you notice when you go anywhere in the world, to any people at any stage of development technologically, in any climate, and you will immediately recognize the men are acting like men, the boys are acting like boys, the women and the girls, they're acting like women and girls. It's immediately obvious to everybody,
Yes.
right? It's as obvious and universal as smile is universal. Wherever you're in the world, if someone is smiling, unless it's a politician, but if someone is smiling, then everybody knows what that means, right? And everybody also knows what boys are like and girls are like. This is something that you have to be taught. You have to be indoctrinated to fail to see. It's just
Explain to us a little bit about that indoctrination. If it is so fundamental, how did it get lost? How did we end up in this sex insanity?
Well, the easiest thing in the world to do is to, when it comes to any kind of description of human behavior, the easiest thing to do is to say, well, what you're looking at there was just caused by culture. Okay. Yeah. That doesn't really explain anything. It's just a magic word that makes the reality go away, makes the whole interest of it go away. It just, people were just taught to be that way.
Socialization.
Yeah. But of course it's nonsense because, as I say in the book, there is no such thing as a human being who is not a social being, right? We are social beings by nature. This is not something super added to us after we're born, right? We form the kinds of societies we form because we have the sort of human nature that we do have. So it's, it's like saying, it would be like saying that wolves adopt the behavior of the pack because they're socialized into it by the pack. That makes no sense. Wolves, by their very nature, are meant to be in wolf packs, right? There's no such thing as a wolf pre-socialized. That's one of the ways in which the wolf fulfills its lupine nature, okay? And human beings form the kinds of societies they do because it's natural to them to do so. And it's in accord with their bodies, right? And the organization of their brains.
You unpack the strength of the human male. You set it forth in such magnificent grandeur. Especially, I was gripped by that story of the incredible, I think, is it called the Croton Aqueduct in upstate New York? That story just left me absolutely in awe of what was accomplished. Men underground for days at a time, doing what only men could do for the sake of building a city, building a town, and supporting their families. This kind of vision you articulated so brilliantly about the strength and all of the careers that traditionally gone into, sailors and soldiers, oil extractors. You did such an incredible job. But what do we do now? I mean, you make that point so clearly, but these days, I mean, who can do these jobs? Do these jobs even exist? Does anyone even care about these jobs anymore?
Well, they ought to exist, right? In our time, because our infrastructure is falling apart.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's scandalous that Moscow, of all places, should have, for instance, underground subways, right? Underground railroad systems that are beautiful and clean and well tended. And we don't. Our approach to any train station in a large American city is an approach through stuff that looks like it's been abandoned for the last 50 or 70 years.
Yes.
This stuff needs to be rebuilt. And where are you going to get the people to do it? It's got to be from the young men. It's there. And I would like to see, I've said this several times, but I'd like to see some of the money that we allocate to welfare, especially money that's allocated with really perverse incentives, so that you are, so to speak, rewarded for doing the antisocial thing, which
Yes.
is, it's antisocial to bear children out of wedlock. Now, of course, if you're bearing a child, we're not permitted morally to kill that child, but there shouldn't be children. 40% of children should not be born out of wedlock. Anyway, it would be interesting to me to see some of the money, some of the money shunted aside to train young men to do this kind of work that's necessary, and then to actually get that work done. It's all over. It's all over the place.
I'm Angelino, born and raised in the mid '60s in downtown Los Angeles, and I remember as a young man, when I was born, I think there were 19 million people in California. Today, there's more than twice that.
Right.
We've doubled the car population. We've doubled the human population. And yet, when I was young, we had just completed the 210 freeway out here.
Right.
Massive. Nothing has been built since. We've
Right.
doubled the number of people and cars, and yet we've accomplished nothing. And even what we have hasn't been kept up. But no one's talking the way you're talking.
And that includes your aqueducts, right?
Oh, absolutely. Matter of fact, we have less than we had when I was born. So not only have we not increased that part of our infrastructure, we've actually, for political purposes, have destroyed it. We've blown up, just in the last 10 years, we've blown up a number of our crucial dams. We have major infrastructure problems here, and no one has a solution. Right. No one's presented any sort of solution.
These aqueducts, these dams, these highways, or repairs of highways, or improvements on highways, they're not going to be done except by men.
Yes.
And by teams of men. And you know what? Now, when I think of the Croton Dam, it's actually engineering masterpiece, because, as I believe I mentioned, they had to figure out some way to get that fresh water underneath the Hudson River and then up from below into New York City, right? So the aqueduct could not simply rely on gravity to bring the water in. You had this aqueduct full of water that's actually below the ground, that's below water. Okay.
Yeah.
This sort of thing, or building the Brooklyn Bridge, if you ever seen those old pictures of the men sitting hundreds of feet above the ground on a girder, sometimes on a girder that's just hanging, having lunch. The things don't happen without the team, and a team is not the same as a cooperative group. A team is a very special kind of social organization, and it's natural to men to form teams, which are not groups. Their actions are not additive. You get a whole bunch of people and you go out, let's say, and you pick blueberries, or you pick mushrooms in the woods. That's a group doing a thing. Okay. A team doing a thing is different. The team is organized, and this gives you a window into peculiarity of the masculine mind. Team is organized to do something whose individual actions make no sense at all, except as part of the whole as it's conceived as a whole. Right? Yes. Something as simple as a football play. You got 11 men on the offense doing 11 different things. No one of those things has any meaning apart from the other 10. It's only as part of a whole, coherent, organized, simultaneous action that it has any meaning at all. That's how Indians had to hunt buffalo. They didn't just say, well, let's go out with a bunch of us in a group and chase buffaloes. They had to work in doing things in this complex, organized fashion, no one of which had any meaning at all apart from the others. Okay. And it's the same thing with a crazy enterprise like building an aqueduct. Okay. What you're doing over here makes sense only because of what's going to be happening 10 miles away down there, and vice versa.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with a platoon and a military action, right? It was like a football play. Um, like anything with this sort of complex kaleidoscopic organization of disparate actors doing something that makes sense only in the context of the entirety, right?
Yes. Your chapter on
Uh,
team, an amazing chapter, especially rooting it back. You started with, hunting parties,
yeah,
hunting parties up to complex sports today, and why boys and men are so deeply attached to sports and to collaborative team ventures together was absolutely beautiful justification of our reality.
yeah. I joke around sometimes and say, and I believe I said in the book too, that all that you really need to know about boys or about the masculine mind you can find on a baseball card. Uh, and you think it, if it try to imagine, and I'm not saying, I'm not, I'm trying to describe something that's peculiar to the sex. I'm not describing anything that's supposed to be a superiority. This is just peculiarity. Okay. But it's a wonderful and it's a dynamic peculiarity. It's productive of a lot of good. Um, Boys and men are attracted to complex systems, and that's what you've got on the back end of a baseball card. You're trying to evaluate a player. How is that player? Well, you've got all these statistics in the back of a baseball card. It's only when you put them all together and form a vision of the whole thing that it takes on its real meaning. And
Sure.
of course, the game itself is just like the hunting party and the platoon too. Uh, we're drawn to that. It's the kind of thing uh, that boys produce. If boys that would girls on their own have ever invented baseball and then kept statistics about it and then analyzed the statistics?
Yeah. Yeah. Great
Uh,
question.
I don't think so. That's not to say anything about them. They've just got other things to do,
Yes.
other things that fascinate, that interest, right? Well, we shouldn't. We should teach boys to be confident about this sort of thing, to embrace it, and not to have it ever disparaged,
I
right?
loved your reflections on male aggression and aggressiveness, and also your commentary upon the discipline, the male discipline of the control of the emotions.
Yeah,
Could you talk to us a little bit about what that means? What's the value, number one, of the uniqueness about being aggressive as a sex, which is clearly the case. You talk about it spiraling out of control if it's not
right.
formed by the morality of a culture. But you're teaching young men and men not to be embarrassed of their inherent aggression. I love that, but can you help us think through that?
Well, sure. Let's suppose that you are Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, right? I wish we were all like Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, but you take a bunch of men, and again, got to think of it as this is like a team, a hunting party. Right? You're taking them out to some place that at that time was pretty awful place to live in, swampy and overwooded part of Germany. Okay, you take them out there because you're going to build a monastery. Now, that's not going to happen unless you and your brothers there are driven with a kind of aggression. Okay. It's never going to happen unless it's hard to describe this passion, right? It's a little bit like anger, but it's not anger. It's a little bit like ambition, but it's not. It's let's go change that thing we're looking at. Okay, we're looking at badly drained land, overgrown with brambles and trees. We're going to cut down the trees. We're going to dig out the stumps. We're going to dig trenches to drain the excess water away. We're going to level things out so we actually grow things on the trees that we cut down. Some of them we're going to use for timber, so that while this is going on over here, you guys over there can be starting to build the first house that we live in, because we got nothing. We're going to need shelter. All right. And we've got to get a lot of this done before winter. Okay. Because we're not going anyplace from here. And that's not going to get done unless you have this drive that says, here, we're going to change. Back it.
We're going to build, we're going to become Masons. I mean, your description of the building of culture, even in the United States, and how we developed our lands from nothing, was just a absolutely marvelous reminder of why God inspired men and have built us with this desire to build and construct for the good of our people, for our families. I love this. I absolutely love this.
Think about a boy and a rock, right? Do something with the rock. Where I grew up, we had abandoned coal mines that were, sometimes just like a 30 or 40-foot pit in the ground. And people would dump their garbage next, That was in the days before you got people to understand that they shouldn't do that. Well, there's a 40-foot pit, and there's somebody's refrigerator perched a few feet away from the edge of the pit. What are you going to do? Every boy knows exactly what you're going to do. You're going to heave that refrigerator end over end till you push it over the brink and watch it go down, because it's fun to do. Not because it's new, but because it's fun. It makes boys should be encouraged to make things happen like that. Right?
Absolutely.
Give them a bunch of timber, give them tools, give them nails and hammers and saws, and let them go.
Tony, this last year, I buried my father, God rest his soul, at 91 years of age. He had played football growing up, went to USC here in Southern California. When he got out of the university, he went into the Navy, and he flew jets, F-2H-3Ns, off of carriers. This is in the 50s. He lost half of his squadron, and they weren't in war. It just was so primitive. That kind of aircraft was so new. And anyway, when he got out of his time in the military, one of his buddies with whom he served on the ships, and he decided that before they settled down and got married, they wanted to go explore. They wanted to go on an adventure. So my father convinced the bank to give him a loan. He bought a Jeep, and he brought his Navy buddy, who wanted to he was a budding ornithologist. He wanted to become a professor of birds. And, what better way to do that than go around the world for a few years on a truck into the jungles.
Oh, boy.
So they did it. They spent 3 years. They went 110,000 miles, 83 countries. My father became what he called a global naut. He went to the extremities of the earth that you can go to by car. And sure enough, his buddy became Dr. Dean Fisher, a great ornithologist at the University of Texas at Austin. He's still alive and just published a book of their travels.
Oh, no kidding. I bet
Oh
that would be
yeah.
fascinating.
And from that time, after they got back, they made a movie actually. That's how they paid for their trip, and they sold it to MGM when they came back. And my father introduced himself from that time. His first name is Noble. So
Right.
he introduced himself at that time as Global Noble. That's how I knew my dad, Global Noble. And recently, I was
And he was
corresponding.
mobile too.
Yes, he was. I was corresponding just last week, in fact, with an incredible Catholic priest and publisher who I've respected for many years. I viewed him as someone to keep my eye on to try to imitate Father Joseph Fessio of Ignatius
Oh,
Press.
sure, yeah.
And I was writing him because my dad told me as I was growing up, he told me, "Hey, do you know this Father Joseph Fessio?" And I said, "How do you know? Who is he?" And my dad said, "Oh, I'm his stock." My dad was a stockbroker, so he was Father Joseph's stockbroker for years. So I was writing Father Joseph about something else, asking him for some idea about something, and he wrote back. He goes, I told him that my dad died. He goes, "Oh, God rest the soul of Global Noble." That's how he knew my dad. So my dad always had this, and it wasn't something he was ashamed of. He just thought that that's what men do. They go to crazy places, they explore extremities because you do. That's
Yeah.
what you do. I've tried to. I've done a poor job of it, imitating him and carrying on his contributions. But one of the things I do as a priest for the last 30 years is whenever I give a blessing to a young man, often in the Orthodox tradition, at the end of the Mass, they'll come forward and we'll hold a cross, and the parishioners will kiss the cross. And I often hold it with one hand. If it's a man kissing it, or especially a young man, I'll let him kiss it. But with my right hand, I punch him in the chest. Not a hard punch, just a little
Right.
punch, just a little punch, a little encouragement to be a young man, and don't
Right.
be ashamed of it. That spirit I sensed in your text and also in your speech now, that these are things to be cultured. And how
Yeah.
do we do that and keep them away from, what shall I say, becoming burglars and brawlers, as you say?
Uh, well, people used to be able to manage this, right? You teach the boys that true manliness is not to behave like an animal with brute aggression and not taking any concern for what is right. That is base. That's not manly. It's unmanly. Okay. Uh, in fact, people who, in the old days, if you were somebody who shot your mouth off all the time and got into brawls in bars, people would look down on you as not much of a man. Okay. That's not manly. And if you gave way to fits of anger, um, that would be described as effeminate. In old days, going back, that word was used in that way to refer to such people in Shakespeare's time, for instance. Okay, uh, you don't do that. Real men don't do that. Real men don't do that because it's weak. Okay, it's what cowards um, are bullies. People who are not in control of their emotions get into brawls. Um, People who are stupid or have their lives completely disorganized, who can't think past the next day, they're the ones who do burglaries. Um, that's all that stuff is base. Um, Imagine an Indian chief teaching the young Indian braves about what it is to be a man among the other men of the tribe. You do things like honor your elders. You do things like keep your mouth shut when your elders are in council or ask for permission to speak. You don't let your passions get control over you because you've got something more important to do, okay? And your indulging in your passions gets in the way, right?
Yes.
We can teach people about this all over again, okay? It doesn't mean that you repress things. That's such a stupid way of looking at it. You've got a certain amount of energy. You don't have infinite energy. And when you direct your passions, it's like channeling a mighty stream so that it doesn't just wash over the levees and do no good to anybody. You channel that stream so it has all the greater force.
Yes. Would you say a word to us before I let you go about education? I'm particularly concerned about when I was young, I started at a school that was just a boys' school,
Right.
and it was a wonderful experience. And then in seventh grade, it became co-ed. And from seventh to 12th, I went to co-ed. Very different experiences
Right.
for me. If we're going to nourish young men to be young men, can we do that in co-ed education? If so, how? If we can't do it in co-ed education, what are we supposed to do?
The answer to that is that it has not been demonstrated yet that it can consistently and effectively be done in coeducation. So that if you've got boys in co-ed schools, something else has to be brought into play outside of that, or at least carving out a space within that. Okay. There's no reason, for instance, I think that in private schools, actually, I don't think there's any reason in public schools, but you'll never get them to do it. But private co-ed schools could actually sometimes, for some courses perhaps, or here and there within a course, separate the sexes. I think both sexes would find that sometimes a great deal more comfortable, because when the other sex isn't around, you feel a little bit more at liberty to speak. That's what every boy that I've ever taught in college who went to an all-boys school, they always tell me the same thing. And by the way, I can usually pick them out of a crowd. They're mature, and they come right up to me. They shake my hand. They introduce themselves on the first day of class. They're refreshing to be around. But they've all said to me because I never went to school like that. I said, "What did you like about it?" And they'll all say, "We were at ease. You could say what you wanted." And I imagine girls might feel the same way with boys not around, but we're talking here about boys. They all say the same thing. And a bunch of guys getting together when the women are not around. Guys don't talk about when men are together. They don't talk. In my experience, they don't talk about their wives. They don't talk about women at all. When they're together, they'll talk about sports or money or politics or machines or how did you put that new roof on, or
Projects.
what's the best way to get from here to there, or they tell funny stories about themselves. They don't tend to talk behind their wives' backs about their wives, and it's refreshing. Sometimes it's just as it's refreshing after that to return to where the women are and get the women and men back together again, right?
Yeah.
There's no reason why we should always have to be in a co-ed situation. I don't think it's productive. Frankly, I don't think it helps our mental health.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you, especially for making no apologies. No
Can I put in a
apologies for the
word for something?
please.
My wife and I put together a magazine, a 6 day week magazine, online magazine called Word and Song. And if you want your nearly daily dose of things that are good and true and beautiful, a film of the week, word of the week, hymn of the week, poem of the week, classic films we do, not modern, not more contemporary stuff, and popular music from the great era of popular music in America. Then join us at Word and Song, and there will be plenty of this sort of thing there too.
I just found Word and Song today myself in
Today.
preparation for the interview, and I subscribed this morning.
Oh, wonderful.
How can
Oh,
people
pass
just
the
go
word
to,
along. Pass the
do
word
people
along.
just go to wordandsong.org? How do we find it?
You can look online under Word and Song, or you can look at anthonyesolen.com,
Okay.
and it'll show up that way.
God bless you, dear brother. I really
God bless
appreciate
you
your
too,
time.
Father.
Thank you.
Hi, friends. Lila Rose here. Very excited about themarriageconference.com. There's going to be some beautiful people coming together, including Archbishop Cordileone, Father Josiah Trenham, of course, the host, Brad Wilcox, and many more. This is the time to reestablish the importance of marriage and to celebrate it and to nurture it in our culture. So go check it out at themarriageconference.com.